Good morning and happy Friday, April 7th. It's the 33rd day of Lent, and we are continuing our Romans study. I'm Father Patrick from St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Manhattan, Kansas. Good morning. It is time for us to jump into chapter 14. Remember that this section, chapters 12 through 15, are kind of about how what does a transformed life look like in community. Paul is probably specifically addressing issues that have been raised to him or that he assumes are happening in the Roman house churches. Recall that we have been told in chapter 12 that what we're supposed to be transformed, not conforming to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of our minds, that we're supposed to love one another, and that we need to live with the armor of light in this present age of darkness. So this is chapter 14, verses 1 through 12. My Bible calls it, "Do not judge one another. Welcome those who are weak in faith, but not for the purpose of quarreling over opinions. Some believe in eating anything, while the weak eat only vegetables. Those who eat must not despise those who abstain, and those who abstain must not pass judgment on those who eat, for God has welcomed them. Who are you to pass judgment on servants of another? It is therefore their own Lord that they stand. It is before their own Lord that they stand or fall, and they will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make them stand. Some judge one day to be better than another, while others judge all days to be alike. Let all be fully convinced in their own minds. Those who observe the day observe it in honor of the Lord, and those who eat in honor of the Lord, since they give thanks to God. While those who abstain in honor of the Lord and give thanks to God. We do not live to ourselves, and we do not die to ourselves. If we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or whether we die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and lived again, so that he might be Lord of both the dead and the living. Why do you pass judgment on your brother or sister? Or why do you despise your brother or sister? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. For it is written, "As I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall give praise to God." So then, each of us will be accountable to God. That was chapter 14, verses 1 through 12. So this is an interesting section. It's combined with the next section, actually. And so I'm going to actually talk about the specifics of what it means when he's talking about eating meat and when he's talking about judging one day to be like the other. I'm going to talk about that more tomorrow. But basically what you want to know is that there's this division within the Roman Church about what is appropriate to eat or not eat, and whether or not to keep certain days more holy than others. And Paul's pretty categorical about his response. He thinks that those of us who spend time judging others, judging the decisions that others make out of their own faith, are in the wrong here, and that we can be pretty clear from Paul's understanding that that is not what we're supposed to be doing. He uses this language of the strong and the weak, but other than saying that the weak eat only vegetables, he doesn't really identify either group. He doesn't say, the strong are those who believe in in keeping certain holy days, and he doesn't. Beyond that, he doesn't specifically say that the strong are Gentiles or Jews, or the weak are Gentiles or Jews. Probably he's doing that in a way to make sure that he's not reinforcing any division that may have come to him. It's probable that he's gotten a letter from some of those who are weak, from those who are strong, basically saying to him, "Listen, we know you're with us. We're strong. We get it. We're doing all these things correctly. What are we going to do about these weak people?" And Paul doesn't want to reinforce that language. Instead, he wants us to understand that all the decisions that are made out of faith are faithful decisions and should be honored. I want to talk about the word of the day today, which is found at the beginning and at the end. The use of this word forms what we call an inclusio, so it cordons off this section as one specific section to talk about. So that word is despise in my translation. We find it in verse 3 and verse 10. The Greek word here is exoutheneo. Exoutheneo, it comes from two words. Ex means out of. It's a preposition. But euthaneo comes from the Greek word oudeis, which is a negative. But more than that, it's like a categorical rejection. We never use the word oudeis. And so what's interesting here is that he's saying, he's challenging those who want to categorically reject others based on the decisions that they've made. So literally oudeis is like, it means nothing. So ex euthaneo means specifically like to count as nothing, to treat with utter contempt, to zero out, right? And so he's understanding the argument of the strong here is that those who are making these wrong decisions are worth nothing, and we need to despise them. We need to fix them or cast them out, which is certainly a very human way to understand the world. And so we can see how this argument has built from early on when he's talking about the difference between living under the power of sin and death, living in the power of the flesh instead of the power of the spirit, living in darkness rather than living in the armor of light, loving one another instead of despising one another. It's all building up to this argument that we who make decisions based on faith should not despise others who make their decisions based on faith. And obviously this is very instructive for us as well. In this last section, verses 10 through 12, he's making it very clear that the decisions you make throughout your life, you are certainly, God is going to hold you to account for those. As he says, we all stand before the judgment seat of God. But what is less understood, he believes, is that we are also going to be accountable for the ways that the attitudes we have toward others, and specifically towards the decisions that they make. So when he asks the rhetorical question, why do you pass judgment on your brother or sister, and why do you despise your brother or sister, he wants us to understand not only are our actions accountable to God, but our attitudes are accountable to God as well. And that's, I mean, it's good news, but it's also hard news because we are really good at holding attitudes toward others. So that's a good thought for the day. We're finishing out this last week before Holy Week. We've got just 1 week of Lent left. And as you've been reflecting this Lent, I would wonder, how have you been noticing your functioning in the world? Paul makes it very clear that, our decisions are important, but just as important are our attitudes toward others. And we need to categorically reject, ex euthaneo, not other people, but our own fleshy ways of thinking. So I invite you to consider that. Have a happy and a holy Lent and enjoy your Friday. We'll see you tomorrow.